You're gonna start doing your own nails? Well, I don't really have a choice.
Well, alright then. Will you do my nails too?
We'll see how this works.
Okay.
The kit I want is like $100. I figured I would practice on this one,
Mm-hmm.
and then see if
during the coronavirus crisis, or is it all just nonsense? Opinions are divided. But there seems to be growing consensus that we can't stay in permanent crisis mode. But how do we end the lockdown without risking a rise in new cases and consequently a higher death toll? Could compulsory face mask policies be the answer? Well, in a moment, we'll talk to an expert from the WHO. But first, this report.
Not all respirator masks are created equal. We can generally distinguish between three main types. So-called filtering facepiece, or FFP masks, fit snugly around the nose, mouth, and chin and filter out the
Parkland
tiniest
Hospital in
airborne
Dallas is
particles.
seeing a sharp increase in
The most effective type
COVID-19
lets no
patients.
viruses in
4
or out.
days before the expected peak
An
in Texas
exhalation
for
valve
deaths,
makes
that's
breathing
May 2nd,
easier, but
2 days
increases
before
the risk of
expected
viruses
peak of
escaping.
hospital
So an
bed usage,
unvalved
and also
FFP
just days
mask
now before the
protects
state of
both the
Texas
wearer and the
will reopen
person
some
they
businesses.
encounter.
Fox 4
With a
Sean
valve,
Rad
it
spoke
only
with doctors
reliably
who are
protects the
concerned.
wearer. FFP masks are in short supply worldwide.
Yeah, they cannot
so they should be mainly
explain what's
reserved for
happening in
medical
Parkland, but they
personnel.
say the numbers there
A
are
mask
different
that's
than what's
often seen
happening in the city
nowadays
of
is this
Dallas
simple
and
protective
across the
face
state.
piece
The
for the
numbers in
mouth and
Parkland
nose.
are going
Known as a
up.
surgical
That
mask,
plus
it consists of several
not really
layers of
robust
paper or
testing,
nonwoven
diagnostic
fabric
testing
with a
yet
thin
across
wire
North
to make
Texas
it fit over
makes
the
some in the
nose.
healthcare community
When the wearer
concerned
coughs or
about the
sneezes,
reopening
the surgical
Texas for
mask
business
blocks
right
the
now,
large
especially in
droplets.
North Texas.
But on
In announcing
inhalation,
phase one of
air
reopening
also
Texas for
flows in
business,
over the
Governor Greg
sides.
Abbott said there
That
had been
means it
across
mainly
the state
protects
7
others from
consecutive
infection
days of
rather than the
COVID-19
wearer.
decline in cases.
Once the mask
That is not the
wet
case
from
at the Dallas
breathing
County
after 8
Hospital,
hours wearing
Parkland.
time at the
In
most,
terms of the numbers
it
of
has
patients
to
that
be
are coming
discarded.
in sick enough to be admitted to the hospital, in terms of the
In the
patients who are
COVID-19 crisis,
being admitted to the
professionally
hospital are sick enough
manufactured
to
masks
require
are in
intensive
short
care,
supply.
and
That's led
mechanical
to a
ventilation.
flourishing cottage
Those numbers have
industry
been
in
going up pretty
DIY
significantly for us
masks.
over the last
Whether
7 to
using
14 days.
handkerchiefs, t-shirts,
Dr.
or
Matthew
vacuum
Levino,
cleaner
and
bags,
VP of Nursing and
people
Surgical
all around the
Services
world
at
are
Parkland,
revving up their
Samantha
sewing
Rowley.
machines.
Really, at Parkland, we
A textile
have
mask
been pulling
functions
our
rather
nurses
like
from
a
all over.
protective
Levino
mask made
says
of
the
paper,
virus not
but
just
generally has a
attacking
poor
the frail.
seal and blocks
It's
only a
pretty
third of the
devastating
droplets
for,
that a surgical
you know,
mask
a
does,
large group of
according to
people
a
that
study.
normally you would think would be
However, a
pretty
cloth
resilient.
mask
And why
can
some
be
are
washed
bothered
and
by
reused.
Friday's limited
The
reopening,
most important
with
thing is
planned
no matter
ramp-up
which
for
mask you
businesses
wear,
to
it can
50%
only be
capacity
effective
by
if used
mid-May.
with hygiene
We've
measures,
oftentimes
like
mentioned
thorough
that in an
hand
ideal
washing and
world,
keeping a safe
we
distance
would
from
prefer to
others.
see a longer
And
period
still,
of
some
time
people say any
before
mask is better
reopening
than
and
none.
certainly
Others, however, warn that
large
masks
chunks of
give
time
people a false
between
sense of
stages.
security. For more, I'm joined now by Professor Ben Cowling at the University of Hong Kong. His research there focuses on respiratory virus transmission
Dallas Mayor
and the
Eric
impact of
Johnson
control
says
measures.
testing
And Professor
equals
Cowling is
success
also a
to
co-director
reopening
of
the
the
economy.
WHO, Collaborating Center for Infectious Disease, Epidemiology and Control at the HKU School of Public Health. Good to have you with us.
If you thought staying
So
at
please,
home was hard, this
there are
next phase
still
is actually going to
a
be
lot of
harder.
mask
And
critics
the reason
out
is there's
there,
going to be
and they say that there's simply not enough
deserved
evidence that wearing
excitement
masks
and
could
optimism,
actually stop
but we
or at
really
least
need folks
reduce
to
the spread of the
maintain
virus.
that thoughtfulness
You, however,
and
were
maintain
involved in a
those safe
study that was
practices
published
of
just still
wearing
some people
masks,
say any
hand
mask is
washing,
better
and
than
keeping
none.
physical distancing.
Others, however, warn that masks
Sure.
give people
so
a
the study
false
that we
sense
did last
of
week
security.
was a very
So
careful
that is
experimental
the
study in
point
a
that everyone
laboratory
wants to
of how
underscore. You really have to take
much
steps to
virus comes
protect
out of the
yourself,
mouths of
face
people with
covering,
influenza
the
or
social
common cold
distancing
infections,
between other
including
people,
common cold
especially
coronavirus.
as community
And we
wakes
found
up,
a
as
lot
the
of virus
economy
in the
opens up
exhale
and people
breath,
begin
not only in the
to
large
move
droplets,
around.
but
There
also in the
will
small
be
particle
additional
aerosols.
cases
And the
that's
second part of the
expected
study, we
when
looked
people
at
start
how
moving
well
around
face masks
outside of their
block
homes.
that virus
What
from getting into
we
the
have to watch
environment.
for is what
We captured all of the
healthcare
exhale breath
and county
that these
officials will
patients
be
were
watching
breathing
for
out,
as well.
and we found
How many of those people
substantial
are sick enough to go
reductions
to
in
the
the virus
hospital?
that
And as
was able
Dr.
to get
Matthew
into the
Levino
environment
said,
when
sick enough
these
to be in
patients wore
intensive care,
surgical face
sick
masks,
enough to have
including
mechanical
influenza and including human
ventilation.
coronavirus.
Well, that sounds to me like the study says that we should wear face masks, and perhaps it should even be mandatory, what you say.
I think we need to be careful not to think that face masks are a magic weapon against COVID. We know the best things that we can do in the community is stay at home, stay away from other people, because that's what will definitely stop transmission. But then if we do need to go out, I think it might be better if people were wearing a mask than if they weren't. But you mentioned at the beginning the supply limitations is one of the big challenges to that kind of policy.
All right, just one more question about this discussion around whether or not we should wear face masks, because it's also linked to fears that SARS-CoV-2 could be airborne. What do we know about that? And still, some people say any mask is better than none.
Still out.
Others, however,
in
warn
the
that
clip
masks
that you just
give people a
played
false
now,
sense
you
of
mentioned
security.
the face masks block the large droplets from coming out of someone who's infected, but for the other person who's wearing them, some of the air comes in the sides. Actually, in both cases, the air will come in the sides and leak, but they can still protect against droplets. What we found in our study was that actually surgical masks could block many of the aerosol particles as well. So even if SARS-CoV-2 is airborne, a surgical mask could still provide some benefit. Obviously, not as much as it would against the large respiratory droplets, but it could still provide some benefit.
Right, and as you mentioned earlier, surgical mask, or any kind of mask really, they're in short supply right now. A lot of people are turning to DIY masks. What kind of mask makes sense in your view for the general public?
It means people dying, and I can't have that.
Well, I think any mask is better than no mask, but we know the materials that are a bit thicker probably have better filtration performance. So a cotton mask, a cloth mask is probably better than a scarf. But we actually don't know that much. There haven't been that many studies on the different choices, and I think that's now one of the priorities.
Now, You already mentioned that a mask can't replace measures like social distancing or washing your hands. But there's a lot of discussion now in Europe about an exit strategy from the lockdown. Can face masks help us return to an almost normal life? So are they a prerequisite for ending the
losing their
lockdown?
lives. It means people dying, and I can't
I
have that.
don't
And nobody,
think
and that
masks are
should
going
be
to be a
unacceptable
magic
to
weapon
everyone.
that lets
thought
life
staying
go
at
back
home
to
was
normal
hard. This next
if
phase is
people were
actually
just
gonna be
wearing masks
harder.
and washing their hands. I think they will do something, but probably not enough to allow life to otherwise return to normal. I think we're still going to need a lot of social distancing and the other measures to test and trace. But maybe if we do the masks...
Texas has reported its highest daily number of COVID-19 deaths just one day after the state began its first phase of reopening. The US state reported 1,033 positive cases after a stay-at-home order was expired. Under new guidelines, all retail stores, restaurants, cinemas and malls have been permitted to reopen, but must limit capacity to 25% of their listed occupancy. State Governor Greg Abbott has received criticism from Democratic leaders over fears of a second coronavirus wave. More than 780 people have died in Texas from COVID-19.
Our best defense is a healthy immune system, and I take care of my body. I eat the right food, I take vitamins, I drink the right water. Vitamin D, vitamin C, it's been proven already. So we have everything that we need. We don't need a vaccine.
Texas has
Case means
reported its
people
highest
losing their
daily number
lives.
of
It means people
COVID-19
dying,
deaths just
and
one day
I can't have
after the
that.
state
And nobody,
began
and that
its
should be
first
unacceptable
phase
to
of
everyone.
reopening.
Thought
The
staying
US
at
state
home was
reported
hard. This next phase is actually going to
1,033
be
positive
harder.
cases after a stay-at-home order was expired. Under new guidelines, all retail stores, restaurants, cinemas and malls have been permitted to reopen, but must limit capacity to 25% of their listed occupancy. State Governor Greg Abbott has received criticism from Democratic leaders over fears of a second coronavirus wave. More than 780 people have died in Texas from COVID-19.
This case means people losing their lives. It means people dying, and I can't have that. And nobody, and that should be unacceptable to everyone.
You thought staying at home was hard. This next phase is actually going to be harder.
So that happened here. And it so happens that on that same day, we had 50 cases already in Texas. This is a 1,000 case scale.
I think it's concerned. I'm concerned. It's been politicized. This is a tool now. This is a tool to keep us at home and on house arrest. We're not on house arrest. We can ask social distance. We can wear our masks. We can stay distance from people. I'm not on house arrest. I refuse. I walk out of my house.
Provide municipalities with information, begging him to do a statewide stay-at-home order to offset any problems that we were going to see.
This case means people losing their lives. It means people dying, and I can't have that. And nobody, and that should be unacceptable to everyone.
You thought staying at home was hard. This next phase is actually going to be harder.
Recommendation, but it was the startup and starting to say some things about it. By March 20th, which was just a day later, we had 200 cases.
You know, my body, my choice. I take care of myself. I should be able to have the freedoms
On
around
March
you.
25th,
My work, my business, my job, my take care of my family.
on March
This case means
26th,
people
the very
losing their
next
lives.
day,
It means people
we found
dying,
out that
and
the
I
United
can't have
States
that. And
found
nobody, and that should be
10
unacceptable
cases
to everyone.
around the
You
world.
thought
We
staying
had
at
more
home was
cases
hard.
than
This
any
next
other
phase is actually going to be harder.
And by March 31st, which is at the end of the cycle, Governor Abbott still had not declared a statewide stay-at-home order. As of April 1st, we had almost 4,000 cases of coronavirus. Starting here with the first case, barely a blip here, a little more here, and now we're here. This is what's happening in Texas because of the inaction inaction of the federal government.
Okay. Freedom of speech, I'm not touching you. I can yell all I want. You have a microphone. Protesters are allowed to be called protesters. Stop! Stop! With this gun. Who brings guns to the protesters?
That's when we were finally able to do the
And still, some people say any mask is better than none. Others, however, warn that masks give people a false sense of security.
able to test safely. 2 weeks after that is when I finally got all the protective equipment that I needed to be able to safely test my
It's a shame what's going on. I'd rather be out working right now than staying down here on the Capitol.
masks. But I want to tell you where this mask came from. It came from my garage. We have had now one shipment of a small number of these masks from the local medical society, but we have been relying on donations from individuals to bring us the proper masks that we need to do this testing. We now have someone locally who has made these easier to use face shields for our office. And hear me when I say someone had to make these for us. We have not been
This case means people losing their lives. It means people dying, and I can't have that. And that should be unacceptable to everyone.
If you thought staying at home was hard, this next phase is actually going to be harder.
donated by people in the community rather than coming from where they should be coming from, which is suppliers. Now we have a situation where we don't have enough test kits. We were told this week that the lab will only provide us with 5 test kits per week. This right here, this is what is on back order. This is what my lab cannot get from their suppliers. This is why I can't do all of the testing that I need to do right now. We are in the richest country in the world, and I can't do the tests I need because of this straw. That's it. We're just in a situation where this is going to continue to get worse. The estimates now are that we're about a month away from the peak in Texas. And if you can see how quickly that's accelerating, and we're already up here, how much higher is that going to go? How many more cases are we going to have in Texas before we reach that peak? And how are we going to be able to handle that without the equipment? Again, from top to bottom, this has been a failure of leadership. Doctors are not getting the information that they need. They're not getting the equipment that they need. And because of that, patients are suffering.
A mask that's often seen nowadays is this simple protective facepiece for the mouth and nose. Known as a surgical mask, it consists of several layers of paper or non-woven fabric with a thin wire to make it fit over the nose. When the wearer coughs or sneezes, the surgical mask blocks the large droplets. But on inhalation, air also flows in over the sides. That means it mainly protects others from infection rather than the wearer. Once the mask is wet from breathing after 8 hours wearing time at the most, it has to be discarded. In the COVID-19 crisis, professionally manufactured masks are in short supply. That's led to a flourishing cottage industry in DIY masks. Whether using handkerchiefs, t-shirts, or vacuum cleaner bags, people all around the world are revving up their sewing machines. A textile mask functions rather like a protective mask made of paper, but generally has a poor seal and blocks only a third of the droplets that a surgical mask does, according to a study. However, a cloth mask can be washed and reused. The most important thing is, no matter which mask you wear, it can only be effective if used with hygiene measures, like thorough hand washing and keeping a safe distance from others.
How do you like that? They didn't even ask how I'm feeling. Chief, get back in there before I break your other leg. Copper, look at here. Now, when that fox comes traipsing along, suspecting nothing,
In this case means people losing their lives. It means people dying. And I can't have that. And that should be unacceptable.